Well, good evening, everyone. I hope you're all having a nice, lovely summer night and staying cool. We have a really special guest tonight. We are welcoming Jessica Honegger. She's the founder and CEO of Noonday Collection. It's a socially responsible business that uses fashion to create meaningful opportunities around the world. It is Jessica and Noonday's mission to make a difference in some of the world's most vulnerable communities. They partner with artisan businesses that share their passion for building a flourishing world. They develop these businesses through fair trade, empowering them to grow sustainably and to create dignified jobs for people who need them. Noonday empowers women to become stylists, storytellers, and social entrepreneurs that they call ambassadors. Over 2,000 women have joined the Noonday community and launched their own ambassador businesses. By selling jewelry and accessories at their trunk shows, these ambassadors are styling their friends and changing the world. Jessica is also the host of Going Scared podcast, where she has honest and vulnerable conversations to inspire her listeners towards action. And she's here tonight to talk about her book, Imperfect Courage. So please welcome Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really, really a joy and honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much for being here. We are big fans of the Noonday brand, and of you, but we're even more inspired by everything you're doing now that we've read your book, which is incredible, and everybody should read it. We know our Passionistas need to read this. Even if you think you know like how to do good in the world, you don't know enough.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Seriously. So we always like to start by asking people, what are you most passionate about?
I would say it is connection. I really want people to feel connected to themselves and feel connected to other people and really to feel connected to the globe. And, I'm very passionate about helping people emerge out of poverty by creating opportunity for people. But I think it really matters how we do that. And so I'm a passionate person. So that's why I love the whole title of your group. I'm like, this is my group. I love passionate people. I'm very passionate. So saying one thing is challenging, but I would say that is definitely at the top of my list.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm just trying to make sure we're streaming live on Facebook. So tell us a little bit about your path to founding Noonday Collection.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a decade, which is crazy. And I had spent a couple of years in my early 20s living in Bolivia and Guatemala, working with an organization called Food for the Hungry International. And that is really where I saw that the people who were able to kind of emerge out of poverty had this entrepreneurial spirit or an entrepreneurial opportunity. And that just really stuck out to me. And came home, I kind of met my husband through that journey. We moved to Texas and thought we'd be moving overseas again, but ended up starting to flip houses. So we began to flip houses and we began to grow our family, start our family. And eventually, after having two children the old-fashioned way, we knew we wanted to adopt internationally. And we kind of met overseas and knew that this was a big part of our story. There's a lot of vulnerable children in the world. And so we began that journey and that process of researching. And through that, decided on a small country in East Africa called Rwanda. And the more research we did, the more we felt like this is where our son would come from. So we began that process and that journey. It's quite expensive. And we were about halfway through the process when the real estate market crashed. This is 2008, 2009. And at that point, any money that we had was now paying the groceries. And soon we were actually putting groceries on the credit card bill. So we were in, it's hard when our whole livelihood was wrapped up in something that was just, just exploding around us, crumbling, not exploding, but crumbling. And so I knew though that, gosh, we still wanted to pursue this child, and I didn't want to let a financial obstacle get in the way, and knew I needed to do something. And previously, a few months before that, I had visited Uganda. And it was on that trip to Uganda that we met some friends that we knew back from our days at Food for the Hungry International. And they were in Uganda for the same reason that we had seen living overseas. They were there to create entrepreneurial opportunities for Ugandans. One of them was a small artisan business. And they had gotten these beautiful things made by a couple named Jalia and Daniel, but they had not actually thought through the marketplace piece. So the stuff was just sitting in storage in America. So they paid them for their work, but then it's just sitting in storage. So they had asked, would you be interested in selling these items? And I, at the time, had a real estate career, had 2 kids under 5, was about to adopt. I just was like, my plate's too full. That's crazy. Well, fast forward a few months later, and courage really cornered me. And I realized this could be my way to earn some income. So I called them up. They said, yes, you're welcome. All of the stuff is in storage. You can go dust it off. So I did. I brought it into my home. I dusted it off. I decorated my house, and I invited friends over, and I asked friends to invite their friends and neighbors to invite neighbors. And, I remember that night came, and I stood in my living room looking around, and I had grandma's dishes for sale. I had all my clothes were for sale. Like, if anything could be sold that night, it was yours. You were a lucky person that night. In addition to all of these beautiful African-made goods. But I just remember standing there and really feeling afraid. I was so afraid suddenly of no one coming. So who wants to throw a party? Nobody comes. And then I was afraid that if people did come, how I was going to be perceived as this really desperate person. We were still trying to sell houses in this housing market. Who's going to hire someone that's this desperate? And then I just thought, what if this whole thing just fails? I look foolish. And I wanted to call it all off, seriously contemplated that. I'm so glad I didn't. Because that is when I learned that courage isn't fearlessness. It is feeling that fear and just simply being able to move forward anyway. And I think so many times we tie our identity to our own stories of whatever worst case scenario outcome it will be. So we think if nobody comes, then we're a loser, we're alone, we're isolated in this world. Or we think if people do come and they see that I'm desperate, then I'm going to be perceived as weak and whatever else. But I believe when we can sort of realize that we can influence outcomes, we can't control them. Right. And when we don't tie our identity to these outcomes, and when we realize that, on the other side of those fears that we have really is our impact, then I think we can start making those baby steps through that fear. And I look back and I remember waking up the next morning and I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt bolstered. All of my fears, people did come and people showed up for me. And not only that, women said, oh my gosh, that necklace, it's sold out. I want one. Can you get more of that? And so the next day I realized, I don't think this is just a fundraiser, but this is a business. This has legs. And I texted with my friends in Uganda and I asked, do you have more product that you think you could get me? And they said, absolutely. And that was the beginning of Noonday. I began to ask other women if they would open their homes. And I just found a generosity. I found that women really do want to show up for one another. And it's that sense of mission and community that has been just so valuable. And to this day, now we have ambassadors all over the country. And I joke that I could noonday my way around the country. I mean, I could land in any town and have a place to stay and a hot meal if I needed one. And I think, that kind of level of choosing to let other people into my need is actually what got me out of loneliness and isolation. And I'm just so grateful for that.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So now you talked about walking through your fear. Tell us how you came up with the phrase imperfect courage and what it means to you.
Yeah. Well, I think I did equate courage with these amazing people, right? Heroes, Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and kind of these legends that you grew up hearing about. And these people feel otherworldly, but actually, if you read Martin Luther King and his work, I mean, he was scared a lot. He was not just like doing his thing and sleeping great at night, And so I think that's really where I realized that, courage is imperfect. It doesn't mean that we're just a lack of fear. And I think a lot of times we can play these mind games with ourselves that, we want to get into this place of perfection. Like we're perfectly confident. We don't have any more insecurity, no fear. And then we'll finally go do the thing. Then we'll finally go make the friend. Then we'll finally go start that thing we were wanting to start. But like that is actually a myth, And so we've got to pop that bubble of these myths that we have in our head. And, I'm just so grateful that now that I was put into a pretty financially desperate situation, because that really was a moment where I felt so cornered. And yet it's the moment that kind of led me to start choosing a life of courage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things you talk about in the book is the concept of bubble wrapping our lives. And I love that. Can you tell us about what that means and what the steps people can take to peel away those layers of bubble wrap?
Yeah, one of my mentors, Andy Crouch, came up with this term. And I think, especially in America, we just have so many things we can numb ourselves and protect ourselves, And I think a lot of us have learned a lot more about what privilege means over the last 15 months. And privilege is being able to turn off the TV and just walk away. And privilege is being able to just, pour the glass of wine and binge just on another Netflix. Well, because we're just like, oh, there's too much pain in the world. And, I think we do these things thinking that it's protecting us like bubble wrap, but actually it's not. It actually keeps us living that life of purpose and living from that place of integrity and passion, to your point of your organization. And so I think, ripping that bubble wrap off, I think it begins by being able to be aware that you are in a place of numb or a place of fear. Being able to name that, awareness creates choice. So if we aren't aware, there's times when you're watching Netflix and it's just fun, right? And there's times when you're watching it to just escape and numb. And I think we know what the difference feels like. Mm-hmm. So if you can become aware of that bubble wrap, then you have a choice. What am I going to do about that? And I think being able to name it and then, be vulnerable, just like I was the night I invited women into my home and said, we don't have money and we need help. I think when we choose to kind of enter into that vulnerability, we begin to come out of that isolation. We begin to have that connection that we're created for. And I think that connection is what gives us that courage to go create beauty in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? You have the first trunk show, which you didn't even know was called a trunk show at the time, right? And then you started to build into what is this incredible and big organization that is Noonday today. Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah. So I, started just couch surfing really those first few months. And I would be at a trunk show. So that's just a gathering of women, what we call a gathering of women. And I would be, talking to women, styling them, sharing stories. And then I would say, hey, would you want to do this? Or do you have any friends that would want to do this? Open your home, or, and so, oh yeah, I've got a friend, or, oh gosh, I've got a friend in Houston, a couple hours away. She would love to do this. And so I would get their names and numbers, and I'd call up the woman in Houston. Hey, would you like to gather women? Sure. Well, also, could I spend the night? Do you have an extra bedroom? Because I can't afford a hotel, but I'd love to get to know you better. So I did. I just started kind of driving around Texas, and then a couple of women got wind of Noonday Collection through blogs. Were really big at the time, and so especially adoption blogs. And I had women begin to reach out to me and say, I would like to do this. I live in Seattle and I'd love to sell these things. This is beautiful. So that's when we started the ambassador opportunity, was just within those first few months. And that's when I really quickly multiplied myself. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, this is not a fundraiser. This is a business. And, at that point, I knew I needed to either raise capital to be able to hire people, or I needed a business partner. And so at that point, I did connect with a friend of mine named Travis Wilson, who had spent many years in Africa doing microfinance loan work. And he was at a place in his life where he'd really been wanting to own a business. And so we, after many months of kind of coming together and evaluating if we'd be good partners, became full-time business partners. And so that's when I brought him on, and we set up my guest bedroom like a warehouse, and he officed in the bathroom, the guest bathroom. And we just slowly built what is now, here today.
That's incredible. That's just amazing. So tell us about some of the artisans that you work with around the world.
Man, I work with some very resilient, creative, tenacious people. And I mean, they really are my inspiration on a daily basis. Jalia and Daniel, the couple that I, first started off with, the ones who my friends were like, gosh, if they just had a marketplace, if they just had opportunity, they thought they could be the future leaders of Uganda. Well, now 10 years later, they really are. They're running a thriving business. They even had the police come and visit their workshop because everyone there wears a uniform. It's just part of their sense of pride in their job. And so the police would notice these people with these blue shirts on, out and about in the community. And they said ever since they started seeing these blue shirts, they noticed that crime was decreasing in the community. And they asked, what's going on? And it's like, well, we're treating our people well. I mean, first of all, Uganda is 80% unemployment. On top of that, many people that have jobs just don't get paid. That's very common. Exploitation of women is just, very normal. And so here's this couple that is really, running a business very counterculturally and in a very caring way. And it really has changed that community. We also are in Guatemala, which I'm leaving for Guatemala in about 8 days. And we work with women weavers. They weave beads and scarves and textiles. And that's in a really remote area of Guatemala where, there are few opportunities in this area. Maybe there's saying cosechar, coffee picking. So there's coffee picking, but, maybe running a small little store. But really this enables women to work from home while their children are playing nearby. And they make beautiful things that we sell. We work in Vietnam, so that's where these earrings are from. And these are made out of sustainably harvested water buffalo horn. It's just an ancient technique. And they create these beautiful pieces in this more remote part of Hanoi. So yeah, those are just a few of the places where we create partnership.
Well, I love that you make a connection with these women too. I think sometimes people think a business in the States, works remotely and doesn't know who's doing the work on the other side of the planet. But you really, I love in your book how you tell the stories of actual individuals who are making the products, and you go over to these countries and you connect with them. It's really special. Are there one or two stories of people that really stand out to you that you've met along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually about to go visit one of the women. Her name is Rosario, and she is from a small village in Guatemala. And she and her family, they had experienced a really traumatic event of exploitation where normally you wouldn't necessarily prosecute the person, but she actually went and got justice help and an attorney and prosecuted this perpetrator, and ended up becoming the first female in her village to run for mayor. And yeah, and her family has, her father actually began with beadwork and passed that down to her and her brother. And then they just really wanted to create opportunity for their village. And so it's, it's a small business. They work with about 20 women, but they really care for these women and for these women's children, and just really, I would say just the people that we partner with, they truly are leaders who are wanting to impact their economy and their community and their people, and that in really like hard circumstances. And so it's a real honor. And, I think that's what's been so challenging during the last 15 months is just, I feel like in some ways the world was getting smaller, and we take ambassadors over, almost 300 women we took in 2018 to Guatemala, India, Peru, Haiti. But we had to cancel all of those trips last year, now this summer as well. And COVID's breaking out in these places in really, terrible ways, especially in India. I mean, it's just been heart-wrenching. Some of our partners that are, almost all of them know people that have passed away from COVID. So it's, on one hand, the world really has gotten bigger again because this disease has really helped, the rich get richer in a lot of ways, the poor have gotten poorer. And so that's why, this work feels even more relevant today, even more so than it did 10 years ago.
Yeah. How did COVID affect the business side of it? Were your artisans suffering from a lack of business? Did you still have sales during COVID?
Yeah, I have to just thank God for our business model, because since we weren't brick and mortar, we were able to stay in business. Women quickly pivoted to doing trunk shows online. So via Zoom and via Facebook groups. And I mean, I think there was just such a sentiment of rallying for the world. So our 2020 ended up meeting all of our sales projections, but many of our artisans that sell to other places, those places shut down. So overall, their purchase orders did decrease, and more than ever, Noonday's, really relevant to them. This year is a little bit more challenging, this summer. I think people are a little tired or a little weary from, having worked so hard last year. So if you guys want to open your virtual homes or your real home to Noonday Collection, we would absolutely love it. You get fun, free stuff, and you really do get to be a part of changing the world with us.
It's amazing.
Well, and it also seems like you become part of a really extensive community of women who are supporting each other. Talk about the annual Shine conference and kind of how that brings the ambassadors together, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I cannot wait. In fact, on Sunday, so we had to cancel all of our international trips, but we said, if you want to do a domestic option, we're going to do one. And so I'm about to meet with 40 ambassadors on Sunday, and it's the first time since this whole thing. And I'm just so thrilled. I've gotten so many texts today, like, it's going to be so fun. And yeah, so we have an annual conference called Shine in Austin every year where we gather, and it's kind of a global summit style leadership development, business running event. We bring in artisans as well. It's really powerful. And then we also take our ambassadors to go visit artisans. So that's another really just beautiful way that artisans ambassadors get to connect. And it kind of blows my mind sometimes, the stories I hear from ambassadors, just how they've met some of their best friends through this community. And I think there's something that when you come together around a mission that kind of helps, just brings you together and really unifies you. And so it's interesting because it's sales, but it's not competitive. And I think that's a very unique culture that we've created.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the other concepts in the book that we loved was the IBBC. So tell us what that stands for and
Yes.
and how you quiet those voices.
Yes.
Please tell us how you quiet those voices.
Hey, it's a daily practice. I'm from Texas. So my dad is a Vietnam War vet. He has a mouth. So, but my mom is this real genteel, proper type. And so my dad she would always say, Jess, instead of bullshit, you need to say BS. And so I'd hear them say BS. And I said, Mom, what does that mean? And she says, bologna sauce. So itty bitty bullshit committee, itty bitty bologna sauce committee. I think we all do have these parts of ourselves that are trying to hold us back. I think we have these parts of ourselves that want to practice courage and want to be connected and know that vulnerability is a beautiful thing. And then we have these other parts of us that are simultaneously saying, you're not enough, you don't matter, your voice doesn't really make a difference, your presence isn't even noticed. And those are the voices, again, that we have to become aware of. And sometimes because these voices are so ingrained and, the neuroplasticity of the brain, if you've been thinking some of these thoughts, they often start very young. Really, you might not even be aware that they're not true. They just feel true. They feel so true because you've been thinking them so long. And so awareness is really that first step. We can become aware, having this thought, and to actually say, maybe this isn't true. Maybe this is coming from a place that is, really broken, and a place where I was alone and didn't know how to make sense of the world. And so how we try to make sense of the world when we're alone as a child is we blame ourselves, and these voices come in. And so I think becoming aware of that, and I think really being able then to be vulnerable and share that. And when we're not meant to be alone. We need other people to help make sense of our stories. So if we can find a place, a person, a group, that can help us make sense of our stories, I think that is the beginning of healing. And it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey. I mean, we're going to Florida with all these ambassadors. And so we got on the kickoff call and I said, nobody go on a diet for this trip. Okay. We're all going to be in swimsuits in front of each other. And I was like, no dieting. Like, this is a safe place, and I think that if we can have a community where we just name these things and, we begin to feel more comfortable in our own skin, then that creates that kind of safe space for other women as well.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important too is I think sometimes people can look at someone like you who has all this success and think, oh, well, you don't have to go scared anymore because you've got it all figured out, or you don't hear those negative thoughts because look at how successful you are. And I like how open you are about the struggles that you've had in the business. Like when you talk about the point you got to where you weren't selling enough and you had to pull back on orders, and how that affected your business. And can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe some of like how you keep having to push yourself, even though you got everything going on?
Yeah.
I think that we think success is just this like upward trajectory, but it's not. And I mean, I'm really having to draw from that time even now. And in 2015, we were growing so quickly those first few years. So we were just kind of like building the airplane as it was flying. And at one point we way over projected how much inventory we would be able to sell. And suddenly, for the first time in our history, we were sitting on $1 million of inventory. And, you know, our commitment is to artisans. And so we were going to have to sell through that inventory, although we did end up pre-ordering a bunch of other inventory in order to keep our commitments to our artisan partners. But, you know, during that time, we had some ambassadors that definitely created assumptions and stories about what was being said, and ended up, you know, really assuming the worst. And that's kind of when we created our ambassador manifesto, was out of that, which the book is really goes through the arc of our manifesto, and says we make generous assumptions, you know. And I think that there's so much can happen in life if we just, that guy, maybe, you know, when we get cut off, to be like, that guy didn't see me, or someone doesn't return a text and it's like, maybe they haven't seen it yet, or they're having a really busy day, or, you know, there's just so many times where we just fill in the gaps with a negative conclusion. And so it takes a lot of work to just, you know, come up with another storyline. And during that time, it was really our first, you know, time where we made a big financial mistake and had to kind of dig our way out of it. But it also, you know, refined us. It created a stronger culture. And, you know, I will say that, you know, during this time now, we're in another more of a slowdown right now. And I'm just like, you know what? Business is like this, and I'm not freaking out. And I'm like, people just need a little breather.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a rough year for everyone. Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of expected like, oh, it's over. They're just going to bounce.
Yeah, it's just normal.
Like, no, we all need to like come out of this.
We're all kind of traumatized.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, and hesitant, like, do we go back full? How do
you want to live life now? It is definitely a challenging time. I'm doing a podcast series right now on Going Scared called Decide, Don't Slide. And it's all about how do we want to live post-pandemic, you know? So it's good to ask ourselves these questions.
Well, and as we know, we hear in the news that the pandemic especially had a devastating effect for women and working women who are having a hard time getting back into the workforce. So if somebody wanted to become an ambassador, what does that involve? What does it take start to finish to be an ambassador?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we'd love to have you. And the more scared you are, probably the better fit this is. We have ambassadors who didn't even have their ears pierced when they became ambassadors. I just love it. I love it. You know, really all it takes is if you can think of one person in your life that would say yes to you. Yeah, sure, I'll purchase a necklace. You've got a business, you know, and it's really simple. We do all the work for you. You have your own website. We send you product. And actually this month in July, we have a unique opportunity for only $19. You can get our digital kit. So that's all of the digital assets. It's your own website. It's all of the marketing material and the training. And then you can start selling tomorrow, which is crazy. You get paid every week. And then, you know, if you just bring friends along. So then if you don't want to do it alone, you just invite friends to do it with you. And you know, it really is simple, fun, and extremely connecting. And next summer, we are definitely going to travel. Hello. And so now's a great time because if you start selling now, you'll get to earn a trip to go travel with us next summer. So all you need to do is go to the website and Noonday Collection, and it says join, and we'd love to, or you can always also, if you're on Instagram, you can DM me, Jessica Honegger.
Excellent.
I love that people have a direct line to you
Yeah.
as well, because there are lots of ambassadors, but to know that they could reach out to you directly is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in that vein, what is the sisterhood effect?
The sisterhood effect. This is really what I was talking about earlier when we decide to make generous assumptions. And instead of side-eyeing and judging and comparing, we reach out a hand. And instead of seeing a stranger, we see a sister. And it really is choosing the way of sisterhood and putting others above yourself and realizing that, we all have struggles, and it's a lie to say, oh, well, like I used to think skinny people just were happier and had better lives.
Yeah.
It's not true. I mean, we can always keep coming up with the thing, right? But again, we have to become aware that this is just really coming from just a hurt place in our own lives. And the faster we can own that, name it, we can tame it and do it with other people. And that is the path to living a courageous life. And I think especially when you're able to do it, with a purpose like Noonday has, is pretty extraordinary opportunity.
Yeah. So talk about the power of presence, our voices, and our purchases.
Yes, I love it. Honestly, I'm going to Guatemala because of just the power of presence. In my position now in the company, I am not, I'm not like going to just design or work on, production related issues. I really am going to say, I'm with you. This has been a hard 15 months. I'm here. I'm taking my family, my 3 kids, my husband. And that's what I told them. I said, this is the ministry of presence. And when you own that you matter, that you're not invisible, that's when you start showing up really differently. And that's when you make an impact. And when you make an impact, that's what we're meant to do. And so the ministry of presence, the power of our presence, is just owning I'm not invisible. I do matter. And maybe that means just like actually saying hi to your neighbor today. Maybe it means stopping and talking to the person while you're getting gas. I don't know, but just to be able, or calling that friend you haven't talked to in a long time. I think that there's power in our presence, and then there's power in our purchasing. We don't think about this so often, but we really do vote with our dollars. And, if you were to open up your Visa account right now, it would probably tell me a lot about your life. And, if you're going to need to just, buy some statement earrings for an event, or, a sweet little necklace, might as well let it make a difference in someone else's lives. So just, just the power of our purchasing. And then what was the other one?
Our voices.
Our voices. Absolutely. I think when you understand your presence matters, that's when you can really own, I have a voice and my voice matters. And, it's really powerful when, I was just telling you about that book I just read when we were getting on here. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it, but it's this kid who got in jail at 13 for committing a crime and just was forgotten. I mean, his mom died while he was in jail. He had no one. And then suddenly had a social worker just starting to show up and communicate with him. And I was just struck by how much just her letters meant to him, and just, it's just when we use our voices for good, but we have to know we have a voice first, and I like to say that we're all born with a voice. We're just building stages so that other people can really sing like we're meant to sing.
Beautiful.
And with all of this work and all of this, energy you put into Noonday, you also stress in the book how important it is to take a break. which I think a lot of people, I know Nancy and I are guilty of that. So why is that so important?
And I really think that rest brings restoration, and only when we are resting can we really be creative and can create the beauty that we're meant to create. And I think that, burnout is one of my biggest concerns, really, when it comes to our ambassador community. I see women sometimes that just like, the rush that comes from, starting to make sales and getting people to join. And then you just kind of like can't get enough, and they hustle. And, of course I'm excited for success, but I would rather see someone with me in 5 years, than just like a flash in the pan. And the only way that we can sustain, especially the work of working with vulnerable people, is, taking these breaks and not vegging out on Netflix, but what really brings rest, what really brings restoration. And, I think that's what we're needing right now. And, even over the last week, I went to my in-laws have a lake house in Indiana, and none of the kids had any technology. We turned on the TV one time, and the rest of the time we played Scrabble and Dutch Blitz and went on walks and watched the sunsets and ate ice cream every night and just enjoyed each other and enjoyed nature. And I didn't get online. And it's really restoring. So I think that, that is the antidote to burnout, is deep rest.
Yeah, that sounds heavenly.
It was heavenly. I'm having a hard time getting back into life.
I bet. So what are some of your other go-to happiness hacks?
Oh, my happiness hacks. Well, I do pray and exercise every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important to me. And I have this tree that even when my kids aren't in school, so I normally drop them off and I go park under the tree to have at least 15 minutes of prayer. But it's almost like a Pavlovian response for me now, where I've just created a physical space in my life where it's like, oh, God's there. if I drive there, God's there. That's cool. He's with me everywhere, but for some reason under that tree. So I do think that a happiness hack is creating a space where you can really experience being loved. And, a lot of that time for me is just spent just imagining what it's like to be loved by a God who doesn't make mistakes. And I just sit in that, and I sit with that. So that's a happiness hack. And definitely moving my body is for sure. Especially it helps me with my anxiety. And, I do think limiting your digital use, we don't have any phones in our rooms. We turn our phones off during a certain time every evening, and, just trying to watch, my digital consumption, I think is really important. And then just being aware that if that Ibbc is, if I'm comparison, jealousy, I mean, it's just wanting what someone else has, So it's like, oh, I wish I could go on that vacation, or gosh, she doesn't work, so of course she gets to just hang out during the summer. I still have to live my normal life every day, becoming aware of those things, and then just practicing gratitude and appreciation for what you have, and all of these things take effort. I just, it requires effort. I think knowing that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't hear you, Anne.
Sorry. What's your definition of success?
For me, it's about being faithful to what God's created me to do. It's just faithfulness. And I've had to work on that, because especially when we were so fast growing, it was easy to find a lot of my identity in success, like basically being like a recognizable brand, the brand that's changing the world. I think especially when you're in the work of justice work, it's easy to find your identity in that and then be justified by that, So I've had to really learn that what it means just to water the garden that God's given me, you know, and that's what faithfulness is. I was telling my therapist that today. I was like, man, it's just fun to water a garden that's just thriving and growing, and the tomatoes are juicy, you know. Another thing when you're just like watering the garden and you're like, oh, but they're not really growing this year. And there's a lot of weeds, you know, but I still gotta go water. The garden still needs watering. So I think it's just learning how to just be faithful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One last question that we love to ask people just for fun is, if you could pick a female throughout history or a female pop culture icon and walk in her shoes for a day, who would you pick and why?
You know, I will say that someone I just really admire is Jalia, the very first artisan partner that I partnered with. And she really lives her life really surrendered and really aware of other people's needs. And she's also just fun and free. And I just, especially right now, since I haven't been able to visit her physically and she hasn't been able to come here, which she normally does every year, I think I would just go telecommute myself to be in her shoes.
Excellent. That's great. Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. It was such a pleasure. We love the book, and we want to make sure everyone, all of our Passionistas who subscribe to the box have it. But we encourage everyone else to go buy it because it's a wonderful book. It's really inspiring. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Becoming part of our Passionistas community. And for everyone watching, we want to remind you that our Women's Equality Summit is coming up August 20th through 22nd. We are lining up some amazing panels and some very special celebrity guests. And we'll have the announcements coming up in the next few weeks about the details of that. So stay tuned. And we hope everyone has a lovely night. And thank you again, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for all the inspiration.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.